Hi everyone, I assigned you this quick warm-up today because these are a couple of questions that I see people struggling with when we take the Chapter 1 test, which is tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure we had a chance to talk about them. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to do this on your own already, and then you can be using this video to kind of verify your work or, fix any misconceptions, things like that. So this first question is talking about this formula, P equals 2R over S, which is used to calculate the pitch of a roof. Okay, and the question says, what is a reasonable domain for R? So I want to make sure that we're wrapping our heads around what that question's asking. Because sometimes when I say, what does domain mean? People will say, oh, it means X. It means more than that. It's not just a letter. It's what numbers make sense in place of that variable. And so in this case, it's the variable R. Okay? And so the question I'm asking is, what numbers make sense here in the equation? Now, mathematically, R could be anything, okay? We have no issues with R in terms of like mathematical restrictions. But in a practical sense, if R is supposed to be the vertical rise of the roof, I hope that you agree with me that we couldn't have negative numbers here, okay? So for that very first question, I would say something along the lines of R has to be greater than 0 or R has to be positive. Okay, because you're not going to have a rise that's negative. I think you could also argue that it could potentially be equal to 0 if you had a totally flat roof, but just no negatives. Okay, next question is just giving us some numbers to plug in here and solve. So it says a roof has a span of 12 feet and a rise of 4 feet. Find the pitch. So the pitch is going to be found by doing 2 times the R value, which it told us is 4 feet, divided by the span of 12 feet. That's going to be 8 over 12, which is really 2/3. And that would be the pitch of my roof. Okay, so that one was pretty straightforward. This third question I'm getting a lot of questions on. Rewrite the formula for S. And when you see this, rewrite the formula for S, keep in mind that that means solve for S. So I'm taking this formula, and I'm moving it around until S is by itself. And we talked about this a couple of times, but as long as the S is on the bottom, I'm never going to be able to totally get it by itself. So the very first thing I would do is multiply by S on both sides. Okay, so now we have S times P equals 2R. And then again, keeping in mind that it's really the S I'm trying to get alone, I would divide by P, and I end up with S equals, 2R over P. And that's it. That'd be my final answer. Okay, let's move on to some recursive formulas. So next up, you were given a sequence, and the sequence went something like, let's see, started at 7, I believe. So it went 7, 70, 700, and so on. I'm not going to keep writing. Okay, and it wanted you to write a recursive formula for this. So recursive formulas always have 2 steps to them. You always have to identify term 1. And when it's just given to you as a sequence, term 1 is easy. It's just sitting right there for you. Okay? And then to get to the next term, that's what this notation means. Okay, to get to the next term, I'm going to take the previous term, so that's t sub n minus 1, and multiply by 10. That's what I'm looking for as far as a recursive formula. Okay, but you do want to double check that you are using this notation correctly. Okay, the next one looked something like this. And I want to point out that wording at the very end of the question because that's really significant, where it talks about what n represents. It says, write a formula to represent the number of people competing on the nth episode. Okay? So when I go to write T1 equals, this really needs to represent the number of people competing on the first episode. Okay? That's what this 1 should be representing based on this right here. Okay? You have to think about that with every one of these because sometimes you have to adjust your answer a little bit from the numbers given to you in the problem. Now, in this problem, you actually don't have to adjust because it tells me that the first episode has 20 cast members. So T1 here would be 20. And then I would say to get to my next episode or my next term, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I would take the previous term and subtract 2. Okay? And then I'm going to put my bracket in here. Okay? And so by subtracting 2, that's the 2 people that are eliminated each week. Okay? The reason I pointed out that wording is if this had been worded slightly differently, if it had said something like to represent the number of people remaining after n weeks, something like that, then this would no longer be 20, right? If I asked you about how many people were remaining after 1 week, well, the first 2 people would have already been voted off the island, okay? So we need to make sure that we're reading for understanding in those word problems, okay? Okay, that's about it.